that وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, and as for those people who disbelieve, أَعْمَالُهُمْ, their deeds. Their deeds meaning whatever good deeds they have done. Like for example, speaking the truth, being good to others, being generous, being charitable, smiling all the time, being positive, fulfilling promises. These are what? Good deeds. Good things that a person could do. So those people who disbelieve, the good deeds that they do, they are كَسَرَابٍ. They're like a mirage. Their reality is like that of a mirage. Sarab is from the root letters, Sin, Ra, Ba. And sarab is a mirage. If you look at it, if you consider it, it is something that is non-existent. Right? That you think there is water at a distance, on the road, or in the field, or on the desert sand. You think there is a puddle of water. You think that there is a lake, or something like that. But when you go to it, it's nothing. So what is it? It's a non-existent thing. And a sarab is also deception. That if a person looks from far, he thinks it's water. And he goes, he strives in order to reach that water. But when he reaches, he doesn't find anything over there. So sarab is what? Something that is non-existent. It's an unreal thing. And it's also a deception. So the deeds of the disbelievers, what are they like? Like a sarab, like a mirage that they see in a distance. That they think the good deeds that they have done are there. They're very great. They're very beneficial. But what happens? This sarab is biqi'atin, in a dry, plain desert. Qi'a is from the root letters qaf, waw, ain. And it's the plural of the word qa'an. We have done the word qa'an, safsafa. What does qa'an mean? A desert, a vast, open land without any vegetation, a flat plain that has nothing on it. So just imagine an empty desert, flat plain. So a sarab on a flat desert sand. يَحْسَبُهُ, he thinks it. Who? الظَّمْآنُ, the thirsty person. Zam'an is from the root letters Za, Mim, Hamza. Zami'a. And Zami'a is to be extremely thirsty. Zam'an, one who is extremely thirsty. And Zama, as opposed to Atsh. Atsh is also used for thirst. But Zama is used for extreme thirst. Such thirst as a result of which a person becomes restless. You know, sometimes you're thirsty. You want water, you can't find it. Okay, you sit quietly. No big deal. But sometimes you're so thirsty, you need water to drink. And you can't stay put. You get up in the middle of the night to have water. Because you're thirsty. So Zam'an is someone who's extremely thirsty. So the person who is thirsty, he thinks of that mirage to be ma'an, to be water. Hatta, until. إِذَا جَاءَهُ, when he comes to it, لَمْ يَجِدْهُ شَيْئًا. He does not find it to be anything. There's no sign of water. It's not even wet soil. There's no trace of water, anything whatsoever. From a distance, the thirsty person, he considers it to be water. But as he approaches it, as he comes to it, he finds it to be nothing. He finds it to be non-existent. So it is as though he has been deceived. But what happens? It's too late to go back. وَوَجَدَ اللَّهُ عِنْدَهُ, and he finds Allah near it. فَوَفَّاهُ حِسَابَهُ, and then Allah gives him his recompense in full. Meaning, it's too late to go back. When a person has died, once a person has died, he will only be given his recompense. Can he go back to the dunya? Can he retrace his steps? No. He cannot go back. So at that time, he's given his recompense. وَاللَّهُ سَرِيعُ الْحِسَابِ, and Allah is swift in taking account. So in this ayah, the end result of the good deeds of the disbelievers is mentioned. That those people who do not follow the guidance that Allah has given, who do not follow the Noor, the Hidayah, the instruction that Allah has sent, what happens? When they are doing whatever they're doing, whatever practices they have, whatever actions they are indulged in, they think of those actions to be very great. This is why people think that if they follow the deen, they're going to go backwards. And if they leave the deen, they're going to become enlightened. They're going to become progressive. They're going to progress with the world. Right? They're going to become successful in worldly terms. But in reality, whatever they're doing is like a sarab. Just like a sarab from a distance, it looks so beautiful. The water is glistening. You can sometimes see the reflection of, a mountain or whatever in that puddle of water. It seems very beautiful. It seems very attractive. Similarly, the good deeds, or the apparently good deeds that the disbelievers do, in contradiction to the commands that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent, their reality is that of a mirage. That they think they're very beautiful. But when they reach them in the hereafter, when they see the end result of their deeds in the hereafter, what do they find? Nothing. Zam'an, thirsty person. Thirsty person, it gives a sense of someone who is very desperate. Someone who has been through a very difficult time. And especially in the desert, someone who's been traveling for a long time, who's perhaps run out of his supplies. So just imagine, when a person goes through the stages of this dunya, the stages of the barzakh, and then eventually the day of judgment, and when he finds his deeds, what does he find? Nothing. Nothing at all. And then Allah holds him accountable for what he has done. He does not find any reward at all, because his deeds will not benefit him. In Surah Al-Kahf, ayah 103, we learn, قُلْ هَلْ نُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِالْأَخْسَرِينَ أَعْمَالًا? Shall we tell you about those who are worst in deeds, those who are greatest losers when it comes to actions? الَّذِينَ ضَلَّ سَعْيُهُمْ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. It is those people whose efforts have gone lost in this dunya. As they died, all their deeds also died in the dunya. وَهُمْ يَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّهُمْ يُحْسِنُونَ صُنْعًا. And all the while they were thinking that they're doing very good. This is the reality of those people who perform deeds contrary to the deeds that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us. We learn in Surah Al-Furqan, ayah number 23, وَقَدِمْنَا إِلَى مَا عَمِلُوا مِنْ عَمَلٍ فَجَعَلْنَاهُ هَبَاءً مَنْصُورًا. And we will regard whatever they have done of deeds, and we will make them as dust that is dispersed. Can you collect dust that has been dispersed? No. Even if you collect it, what good will it be? Nothing. We also learn in Surah Hud, ayah 15 to 16, that man kana yuridu al-hayata ad-dunya wa zinataha nuwaffi ilayhim a'malahum fiha wa hum fiha la yubkhasun. That whoever wants the reward of this dunya and its adornment, then what happens? Allah gives him the recompense of his deeds in this dunya, and they're not reduced in it. أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ لَيْسَ لَهُمْ فِي الْآخِرَةِ إِلَّا النَّارِ. But for such people, there is nothing for them in the hereafter except fire. So what do we see in this ayah? That the life that a person has been given, that every single human being has been given, it is given to us to do something with. We have been given this time so that we do something in this time. Not so that we kill this time, that we pass this time. And whatever we do, it's either going to be of benefit for us, or it is going to be a means of loss for us. When is it going to be a means of benefit for us? When we follow the commands that Allah has given. When we follow the instructions that Allah has given. And when will it be a means of loss for us? When we neglect those commands. When we do not follow them. When we do not observe them. When we do not have the hereafter in mind. Because constantly, what have we been seeing in this surah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us many, many commands. If we follow them, if we observe them, if we live by them, then there is benefit. And if we abandon them, then we're causing loss to ourselves only. And الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا have been mentioned in particular because they have neither iman, nor do they have amal salih. So if a person has iman but he does not do amal salih, he has only one of the two, then again his benefit will be limited. A person can only be successful when he has iman and amal salih. Good deeds as well. Deeds that are done in accordance to the instructions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given. Another example is presented. أَوْ كَظُلُمَاتٍ. Or they are like darknesses. أَوْ كَظُلُمَاتٍ. This example can be understood as the example of their deeds, that or their deeds are like darknesses. Or أَوْ كَظُلُمَاتٍ can be understood as أَوْ for tanweer, to show variety. That the previous example was the example of their good deeds. And this example is of their belief. It is of their faith. It is of their bad deeds. Or according to some, that this is the example of their followers and the previous example was of their leaders. But out of all of these, the most appropriate seems to be that this example is of their belief and the previous example is of their good deeds. That أَوْ كَظُلُمَاتٍ, or like darknesses. Meaning, their deeds are like darknesses, or their hearts are like darknesses. And ظُلُمَات, what do they represent? What do they represent? Ignorance. Where light represents knowledge and guidance, darkness represents ignorance and heedlessness. أَوْ كَظُلُمَاتٍ, or they are like darknesses. Which darknesses? فِي بَحْرٍ, in a sea that is لُجِّيٍّ, that is deep. Lujji is from the word lujaj, from the root letters lam, jim, jim. And lujaj is to continue to do something that is forbidden. That a person becomes stubborn on it. He does not give it up. بَلَّجُّوا فِي عُتُوٍّ وَنُفُورٍ. So, lujaj is to continue to do something that is forbidden. To become stubborn. And ya at the end is of nisba as well. Nisba with the bahr. That bahr, that is lujji. What does it mean by bahr al-lujji? This is understood as, first of all, a deep sea. A deep sea. Just imagine a large body of water that is also very, very deep. So imagine an ocean. Imagine a sea. How deep is it? And the deeper you go, the darker it becomes. Isn't it so? The deeper you go, the darker it becomes. And as you go into the depths of the ocean, there are such levels in which there is absolutely no light. It's pitch dark. There's no light even during the daytime. No light reaches those areas. And the creatures that exist in those areas, in those depths, they don't even have eyes. They don't even have eyes because they don't need them. It's extremely dark. But rather Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them such senses or such parts on their bodies with which they're able to sense things around them. So, Bahr al-Lujji is extremely deep water. Extremely deep sea, whose depth cannot be imagined, cannot be known. It is of tremendous depth, fathomless depth. And Lujji is also understood as a sea whose waves are constantly coming out and they're retreating, constantly colliding with one another. You see, sometimes the sea is very, very calm. And sometimes when there's a storm, what happens? The waves are constantly coming out, right? Colliding into one another. So, Bahr al-Lujji, how do we understand? In two ways. First of all, extremely deep and dark. And secondly, violent. يَغْشَاهُ مَوْجٌ. What covers the sea? Mawjun, a wave. Min fawqihi mawjun, and above it another wave. So there are waves and waves of water. Constantly the water is moving, and constantly one layer of darkness is coming upon another layer of darkness. And min fawqihi, from above it, meaning above these waves, is what? Sahabun, a cloud. So even if there was any sun, that sun is being obstructed by what? By the clouds. So as a result, what do you have? ظُلُمَاتٌ, darknesses, بَعْضُهَا, some of it, فَوْقَ بَعْض, above others. Meaning layers of darkness. In the example that we learned at the beginning, what did we learn? نُورٌ عَلَى نُور. That the oil itself is radiant. The glass itself is like a pearl, like a star. And then on top of that, there's also light inside. Nurun ala nur, light upon light. Each layer of light is covered by another layer of light. And over here, what do we see? That one layer of darkness is covered by another layer of darkness. There is darkness in the heart. There is darkness in the actions. There is darkness in the words. There is darkness in behavior. There is ignorance everywhere. A person is immersed in ignorance. That he is in so much darkness and ignorance that إِذَا أَخْرَجَ يَدَهُ, when this person takes out his hand, لَمْ يَكَدْ يَرَاهَا. لَمْ يَكَدْ, he is almost not able to, يَرَاهَا, that he sees it. He is almost unable to see his own hand. It is so dark. Just imagine if a person is in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of the night, or in the middle of a storm even if it's daytime. But because it's so cloudy, and there's so many waves, if you take your hand out, you can barely see it. Barely see it. لَمْ يَكَدْ يَرَاهَا. وَمَنْ, and whoever, لَمْ يَجْعَلْ, he does not make, who, Allahu Allah, whoever Allah does not make for him, lahu nuran, light, فَمَا لَهُ مِن نُور, then he does not have any light. Whoever Allah does not give iman to, that person does not have iman. Whoever Allah does not give guidance to, that person does not have guidance. Whoever Allah does not give knowledge to, that person does not have knowledge. So this example is of the heart of the disbeliever. Where the first example was the example of the heart of the believer, the qalb of the believer, that in the heart is iman, the fire. Over here, what do we see? The heart of the disbeliever. That in the heart is ignorance. There is kufr. There is darkness. And as a result, what's going to happen? What's going to come out on the tongue? What's going to come out in the actions? Ignorance. Not something that Allah is going to like. Not something that is according to the teachings of Allah. No. So we see that a person who does not have iman in his heart, who does not have hidayah tawfiq, hidayah irshad, then he is living a life of darkness. He has been deprived of guidance. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَجْعَلِ اللَّهُ لَهُ نُورًا فَمَا لَهُ مِن نُور. He thinks that he is okay. He thinks that he is in light. He thinks that he is going towards success. But in reality, he is in ignorance. He is in darkness. He is heading towards failure. What do we see in these ayat? Two examples have been mentioned. Completely different examples. One is the example of light, of knowledge, of guidance, and the other is of kufr, of ignorance, of jahl. And these are two completely different ways of life. Completely different ways of looking at things, of perceiving things. Completely different ways leading to completely different destinations. When a person learns about the commands of Allah and he implements them, then he is in light. And when a person ignores the commands of Allah, he is ignorant of them, he does not implement them, then in reality he is in darkness. This is what Allah is telling us. And this should become our criteria as well. Because what happens, if we ever come across a person who is following the commands of Allah, we feel bad for them. We feel sorry for them. We feel pity for them. And if a person is not following the commands of Allah, we get very impressed by them. We get very intimidated by them. But what do we see? Who is truly in light? Who is truly successful? The one who is following the commands of Allah. And who is truly heading towards error and loss? The one who does not follow the guidance of Allah. So a very clear criteria is being given to us. And each and every one of us can analyze ourselves in the light of these examples. That where do we stand? Do we stand where there is knowledge or where there is ignorance? Do we stand where there is amal, action, or where there is rejection, there is heedlessness? That a person does not accept what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said. Two different ways leading to two different destinations. We listen to the recitation. There's a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said, hearts are of four kinds. The heart that is clear like a shining lamp. This is one. The heart that is covered and tied up. The heart that is upside down. And the heart that is clad in armor, covered in armor. As for the clear heart, that is like a shining lamp, it is the heart of the believer, in which is a lamp filled with light. As for the covered heart, this is the heart of the disbeliever. And as for the upside down heart, this is the heart of the hypocrite, who recognizes, then denies. What does a hypocrite do? He recognizes, and then he denies. So his heart is upside down. He knows what he should be doing, but he doesn't do it. And as for the armor-clad heart, this is the heart in which there is both iman and nifaq, both faith and hypocrisy. And the example of the faith in that heart is like that of a legume, a sprout that is irrigated with good water. And the likeness of the hypocrisy in it is that of sores that are fed by blood and pus. Whichever of two prevails is the characteristic that will dominate. Meaning the heart in which there is nifaq and iman, it will not remain the same 50-50. No. Either one is going to dominate the other. The iman in that heart is like that of a plant, which is fed by good water. If it's fed by good water, clean water, what's going to happen? It's going to grow. It's going to increase. And the hypocrisy is going to decrease. And if he does not feed that, instead he feeds the nifaq, then the example of that is like sores that are fed by blood and pus. And when they're going to be fed by blood and pus, what's going to happen to them? They're going to increase. They're going to multiply. They're going to spread. So what do we see? That the heart in which there is nifaq and iman, it cannot remain stagnant. Either one is going to overcome. It depends on what we feed. It depends on what oil we put in, if we choose to put something in at all. So 4 types of hearts exist. One of the believer, one of the disbeliever, one of the hypocrite, and one in which there is both iman and nifaq. So it's up to us. What do we feed? Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayka. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.